Hi guys, everybody hear me okay? Hi. All right, so I'm Becca Rubenfeld. I am one of the co-founders of AnchorWatch. AnchorWatch, first and foremost, is an insurer. So we're an insurance company, Bitcoin native. We're focused on insuring Bitcoin. Our first product is Bitcoin held in cold storage. See? There we go. Bitcoin held in cold storage. So this is our first product. We have a custodial service called Trident, which is a Miniscript-enabled custody solution where customers hold keys, AnchorWatch holds keys, and it's backed by one-to-one insurance coverage. So really first in the market that's doing that, that's providing this custody with a financial guarantee, really providing security to the customers. But today, I'm not really focusing on our first product. What I want to talk about is more the concept of custody and insurance and why today there really isn't insured custody. So I want to think a little bit about the difference between general cloud storage and Bitcoin private key storage. So what is a Bitcoin private key? It's a tiny piece of data. And I mean tiny, right? It's 256 zeros and ones. It's a really, really tiny piece of data. It's 3% of a kilobyte of data. So when you think about, what we're doing here, we're storing a really small piece of data. So the similar but different services are cloud providers. So we've got Google, we've got iCloud, we've got Amazon, all doing cloud storage. So they're storing JPEGs, videos, programs, all sorts of data, massive amounts of data. On the flip side, we've got Bitcoin custody, which is storing these private keys. So what's similar, what's different? Lots of similarities, just a few differences actually. So in terms of what they're doing, both business models storing data. Given that the cloud service providers are storing huge amounts of data, they've got their servers, server farms, paying electricity to run those. There's some security, physical security that they've got to take into account. On the Bitcoin side, also, storing data, right? But the amount of data that we're talking about, is it could fit on a computer. You could put the entire UTXO set. Could be stored in a cloud service for like $1.14 a year if you were just taking it and storing it at one of these providers. So that's the amount of data we're talking about. We're not talking about server farms. We're not talking about huge electricity bills. There's physical storage, right? So, physical security, server farms have to be protected, make sure they're not vulnerable to attack. On the Bitcoin side, right, we've got perhaps vaulting, physical vaults, whatever is necessary to make sure the private keys, the hardware wallets, air-gapped computer systems are protected. Both business models have procedures in place. So procedures might differ here. We might deviate a little bit more in terms of what the different business models have to do. So both have some customer interactions, some customer support, maybe some access controls, right? So how your customers, how your employees can access different aspects of information. So building those procedures, building those firewalls in place. On the Bitcoin side, maybe there's a little bit more in terms of regulatory, right? If you're a custodian, maybe you've got regulators. If you're in multiple countries, perhaps you have a lot of regulators. So there's some overhead on the Bitcoin side that might have some additional expenses. But then on the user interface, that back is to more similar things. So in both cases, you need a way for your customers to interact with the data, access it when they need to. So overall, the business models are not that different. In terms of total expense, I look to the cloud storage providers, primarily because of the server farms and the electricity to run those server farms. So the question is, why has the industry developed to look at Bitcoin custody and charge customers in a way that I would consider anti-consumer, where they, instead of charging on the size of the data, they're charging on the value of the data. They're saying, customer, this data is so important. It's so important that you're going to pay for custody of that data on an AUM basis. So you're going to charge a percent of what it's worth for us to hold that instead of what it costs us to store it. Why are they doing that? Because they can, right? So that's how the industry is developed. Can you blame them? It's a great business. You get those procedures set up, you get that physical infrastructure set up, you get your regulatory. So there are some costs, right? Legitimate costs to set up that business model. And then you're charging AUM. So they do it because they can, right? But does that make sense for the consumer? Generally, if you are relying on one of these companies to hold this vitally important piece of data, things can go wrong, right? So there are all sorts of logos on this screen. There's a history of hacks. And you might say, Becca, how can you put FTX logo on the same screen as good actors with proven track records, right? How can you do that? Like, why are you putting pictures of hacks on the same screen as providers who are housing the ETFs? But there is a commonality here. And the commonality is that they don't provide a financial guarantee. None of them, right? So they're taking a cut of the Bitcoin. And at the end of the day, if something goes wrong, whether it was a bad actor like FTX or a good actor, somebody with a proven track record, you are an unsecured creditor. So if something goes wrong, it's the same to you. You're out your Bitcoin. There's no real recourse. You're an unsecured creditor. Furthermore, when we look at the ETFs, when we look at companies that hold Bitcoin, custodians, if you look at their terms of service, what you have signed when you did business with them, they're all calling this out very directly. So we pulled screenshots from a variety of providers, and they're all saying some variant of the same thing. So I'm going to read a couple. First one, not FDIC insured. Most people know this, but just calling it out. You have no insurance through FDIC. Furthermore, one of many examples. The insurance that covers losses of our Bitcoin holdings is only a small fraction of the entirety of our holdings, and there can be no guarantee that such insurance will be maintained as part of custodial services that we have, or that such cover will cover losses. Pretty much, we know that they can't protect you, right? Because if there was a loss, a catastrophic loss, they do not have the balance sheet to make you whole. You will be out your Bitcoin. You are an unsecured creditor. So why are you paying an AUM to custody this small piece of data when they're not providing that guarantee? Just to kind of demonstrate the scale that we're talking about here, Bitcoin is now, this slide is already out of date. Thanks to our friends at River, they pulled together and posted this chart, but just showing where the Bitcoin is being held. It's over $1 trillion asset now. There's under $1 billion of property insurance cover on Bitcoin today, right? So it is effectively an uninsured asset. AnchorWatch is looking to change that. So where do we go from here? What is insurance? What is insurance's role within the custody industry? Now, you can have opinions, preferences on self-custody versus custody services, but realistically, new money is coming in, and there are a lot of entities that have to use outside custodians for fiduciary reasons, etc. So just saying like, oh, it's all about self-custody, there's a larger market than that, and we have to really be realistic about what's coming, what kind of range of services that we need. So ultimately, when you sign on with a custodian, somebody providing custodian services, and they promise you that they're going to keep your Bitcoin safe, it's a meaningless promise, right? Because there is no guarantee. If something goes wrong, they can't make you whole. They can't indemnify you, right? So they cannot fix their mistake if it happens. And so ultimately, what is responsibility without actual accountability, right? Accountability would be making your customers whole, right? How responsible can you be if you can't be accountable in the case that something goes wrong? Ultimately, a catastrophic loss ultimately will put companies into bankrupt. Unsecured creditors will lose their Bitcoin, and that's that. So the solution and what AnchorWatch is offering and pushing the industry towards is as close to one-to-one cover as we can get. If you have $10 million of Bitcoin, you should have $10 million of insurance if you're using an outside provider, right? It is actually bringing accountability to the service. And how is accountability provided? Through regulated insurance. Why does it need to be insurance? Because insurance is a real thing. An insurance fund, an insurance protocol, people throw around these words. That's not insurance. Insurance means that regulators have defined and verify a certain amount of collateral that is in place, that is being held safely, that statistically is going to cover losses when they happen, right? It's actually saying that this company, the insurance company, must be able to uphold their financial guarantee and protect customers. So what AnchorWatch believes is as affordable insurance comes available on the marketplace, and in defense of a lot of custodians, a few months ago, good insurance has not been readily available. The little bits of insurance that were on the market were very expensive. AnchorWatch is looking to change that. But what happens as we do? Insurance comes available. If you're a fiduciary and you're holding customer funds or supporting customer funds, we believe there will be fiduciary flight away from uninsured custody to insured custody. Why would you spend your customer's money, right, to put it in a custodial solution without accountability when a solution with accountability exists, right? It doesn't actually make a lot of sense. It actually seems like misuse of your customers' funds. That money, if you are paying an AUM-based fee structure, a significant portion should not just be padding profit margins. It should be securing the collateral that protects the Bitcoin, that protects the customer. That's where the money should be going. Securing collateral to protect the customer. So ultimately, AnchorWatch, looking to provide this service, make it readily available. As I mentioned, our first product is using Trident. It's our own custody solution. So if you become a customer, you get the custody services and one-to-one backed insurance. We think it's important. We think insurance is accretive to Bitcoin in general. We think if you are a new investor in the space, you're deciding if you're ready to make an allocation, right? You already are taking on the price risk of Bitcoin. Do I want to make this allocation? Do I want to make a 1% or a 5% allocation? It's a very volatile asset. So there's already that risk that they have to take on. Now, in addition, they have to take on key man risk. They have to worry about the counterparty risk of custodians. We believe that insurance is in place, and it actually removes that, and it makes that allocation much easier for new money, right? Additionally, as we go on, we develop new and additional insurance products, and these, again, they just continue to help the industry. For example, L2s, scaling solutions come on. Over time, we develop insurance products on those. There are security trade-offs on L2s. What's a good way to counteract a security trade-off? Insurance, right? So insurance plays a vital role in the future of Bitcoin, and AnchorWatch is looking to support that. So please reach out if you have any questions, and appreciate the time.